This is Tales and Whispers, where every story is felt, not just heard.
Today we're diving into a story that is, honestly, almost impossible to believe. It's a story about just how fragile life is, the sheer power of the ocean, and, well, the incredible, unbelievable strength of the human spirit. This is the story of Bahia Bakari.
I want you to just try and imagine that for a second. You're completely alone, in the pitch black, in the middle of the ocean. The only thing connecting you to other people are the sounds of their voices. And then, one by one, they just fade away. That was the reality for a 12-year-old girl. So to really understand how she ended up there, we have to go back to the beginning.
You know, it's funny how so many tragedies start out so normal. For Bahia, this was supposed to be a simple summer trip, a journey that promised a family vacation, but ended up delivering an absolute nightmare.
She was just a kid, 12 years old, dreaming about her summer holiday. She was with her mom on a flight that felt totally, completely ordinary, just like any other. There was just no way, absolutely no way, for her to know that this one trip would become a story the entire world would never forget.
And this is where that sense of normal just completely shatters. I mean, one minute people are dozing off and Bahia's mom is trying to calm her down about the landing. The very next, the air itself feels different, heavy. The plane starts to shake, and we're not talking about normal turbulence here. This was violent, like the sky itself was trying to rip the plane apart. And then, at 1:50 in the morning, in that disorienting darkness, all hell broke loose.
What happened next was a blur. A sequence of events so fast, so chaotic, it's almost impossible to really process.
First, there was this sound. A single, deafeningly loud noise that just ripped through everything. And then, just as suddenly, total silence. The engines, the shaking, the storm, all of it just gone. It was this terrifying, unnatural quiet, like someone had just hit the off switch on the world.
And that silence was shattered by the impact. Not just a jolt, but a shock that felt like it went right through your soul, as the plane hit the ocean and was just torn apart.
This is what Bahia woke up to. A terrifying mix of sensations. The freezing cold of the water, the sharp edges of twisted metal all around her, total darkness, and the sound of screams coming from every direction. She was in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by wreckage, fighting just to breathe.
And right there, from that moment of impact, her real test began. A fight for survival against odds that were, well, they were astronomical.
And this just lays it all out how absolutely dire her situation was. I mean, just think about this. She had no life vest. Even crazier, she didn't know how to swim. And of course, there was zero guarantee anyone was coming for her. All she had was this one small, uncomfortable piece of the plane to cling to, and this powerful, unexplainable will to just not let go.
9, just let that number sink in. 9 hours. In the cold, dark water, feeling every single minute tick by like an eternity, surrounded by nothing but a huge, empty, terrifying ocean.
And you know, maybe the most heartbreaking part of this whole ordeal was the sound. At first, there were other people out there with her in the dark. You could hear them crying for help. A tiny bit of comfort, knowing you're not totally alone. But as the hours dragged on, those voices started to disappear one by one, until all she could hear was the wind and the wave. But after an eternity of darkness, after all that, a tiny flicker of hope finally appeared on the horizon. As the sun finally started to rise, she saw it. A shape in the distance. A ship. For a second, you have to imagine she thought she was hallucinating. But it was real. And, most importantly, someone on that ship saw her. A sailor jumped into the water and pulled her out, and it was only then, safe in his arms, that Bahia finally let herself collapse. She had broken bones, burns, she was exhausted and suffering from hypothermia, but the real pain wasn't physical. Her mother was gone. She was the only one who made it. So of course, the press immediately labeled her the Miracle Girl. But her story is about so much more than a catchy title or just plain luck. You see, as Bahia grew up, she made a very powerful choice. She didn't try to forget what happened. Instead, she found a real purpose in the fact that she survived. She decided to share her story, not for the attention and definitely not for entertainment. She did it for one really profound reason, to make sure that the 152 other people on that flight, including her own mother, would never be forgotten or just reduced to a statistic. She became their voice.
So, what do we take away from a story that's this intense, this powerful? Well, the lessons are actually both incredibly simple and deeply profound.
Her experience kind of holds a mirror up to our own lives. It teaches us that life can change in an instant, so we should be so careful not to break others. It reminds us to never ever belittle someone's pain, because you just don't know what they're going through. And it really pushes us not to put off being kind. You know, that good word, that hug, that apology, because we're just not guaranteed it tomorrow. And maybe most of all, it's about holding on to hope, even when everything around you is dark.
In the end, Bahia's story leaves us with this really powerful question. It forces us to look at our own challenges, our own dark moments, and ask if a 12-year-old girl who couldn't even swim survived 9 hours alone in the ocean, then maybe, just maybe, what feels impossible for us today is actually just the start of a new beginning.